Coalition. Thank you, Greg Thompkins. I'm getting over the cold too, so this is exciting because I respect you, and it's like we've already talked a little bit, so I know what's the. So anyway, Greg Thompkins is a saxophone player. He is an educator. He is a band leader. He does all kinds of stuff, and he has been for his whole like adult life, and even what longer than that. So as an educator, as a player, as in all kinds of music. So thank you, Greg, for being a part of this. And I just want to let's take it back to your beginnings in music. Where did it all start with you?
Fortunately, I grew up in the 70s in Anne Arundel County at a wonderful time period where the music programs in the school systems were incredibly strong. And to be in band, concert band, was a thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I got involved in band was in the 5th grade year, a bunch of kids were walking around through the school asking other kids if they wanted to be in band next year.
Mm-hmm.
And they came up and asked me, and I thought about it. I was going to say no. And then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound bad. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to be asked to be part of something, especially by your peers.
Yeah.
So I look forward to joining the band all summer. And in 6th grade, this would have been at Pasadena Elementary School, had the coolest band teacher ever.
All right. So that is your.
This guy's name was Mr. Thomas, right?
Okay.
He was an older white guy with long hair,
Mm-hmm.
and he drove a big Cadillac.
All right.
And he loved kids. He was super nice.
Yeah.
And he could get them to play.
Yeah.
Loved it, So that first year for me was just spectacular as far as learning something that I really wanted to learn, and fell in love with it right then.
Okay, so what did music represent to you before then? It was just stuff you listened to the radio and
I didn't have a record player.
Okay.
I don't or anything like that. Maybe I did, but I don't, music was just something that was there, and probably anything that I saw. I know that my dad took me and my brother and sister to see the Jackson 5.
All right.
Civic Center.
Mm-hmm.
With Casey and the Sunshine Band opening up.
Okay.
And like literally with the Jackson 5, like with a full band,
right?
Rhythm section, strings, the whole thing, horns. Mm-hmm. It was incredible.
Right. Yeah. So, so that was your first concert.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Mr. Thomas. Okay, so that was your first like huge music educator. So, then saxophone is your first instrument?
No, clarinet was, because see, back then, I probably wasn't even aware that there was a saxophone,
All right.
But they were like, "Oh, you're going to play clarinet."
Did they choose the instrument for you then?
I can't remember that.
Okay.
But clarinet, even though I liked playing it, it wasn't the sound that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I started to hear, coming up in the 70s, there were so many great saxophone solos. You got to think Reasons, Earth, Wind and Fire,
right?
Just the Way You Are, Billy Joel,
mm-hmm.
Phil Woods, right? All the great saxophone players that played with Steely Dan,
Yeah. Baker Street.
Yeah, it was,
yeah.
And these were all credible solos,
right.
I mean, high class stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a sound that I was starting to hear, and was very attracted to. And I think as I got a little older and I started listening to jazz radio, because at that time period, WPFW, which was like the strictly kind of like jazz radio in Washington, which we could get.
Mhm.
Um, and they were playing like John Coltrane and Eric Dolphy like
Okay.
almost all day long.
So you're this middle school kid listening to Coltrane and Eric Dolphy?
Well, you have to also remember radio was very different then.
Okay.
So you had radio stations that would play, Hendrix, Coltrane, a string quartet.
Mhm.
That was the cool stuff to listen to, because like your radio, AM radio was playing, real pop stuff,
Mhm.
but the FM was becoming very strong because they had this album orientated rock.
Right.
So the whole music thing was moving pretty fast,
Yeah.
and, unbelievably, when my parents moved from Baltimore City, inner city, to the woods of Anne Arundel County,
Mhm.
one of the first nights, when you move from an area that is nothing but just complete noise all
Right.
the time, you're used to it, activity.
Mhm.
And then you're like literally out in the woods and you're laying there in bed and you can hear silence into silence
Yeah.
into silence, right?
Mhm.
And you start to realize that, your ears open up, and there was a radio station that was actually playing oldies rock and roll, but we're talking about like Jerry Lee
Oh, the
Lewis, right?
50s. Yeah,
The,
back then the oldies meant the 50s. Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
And I'm hearing this stuff, and I'm like, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never heard it before. So I was hearing all sorts of stuff that was
Yeah.
getting my ear. Not only the jazz, the oldies rock, bluegrass,
Yeah.
um, and as you go through school, you meet friends, and I had two friends that were trumpet players that were very excellent trumpet players. We would go to concerts together, all of us, and I would go to see the Towson University Jazz Ensemble, which had
Mhm.
won a lot of awards
Yeah, yeah.
through the 70s, and I would
Mhm.
go and see them all the time.
That's
I went
wonderful. It's
so many
legendary,
times.
legendary. Which we're going to talk about later, but legendary music program for, um, yeah, ahead of its
Yeah,
time.
I believe he was the jazz director. But I went to so many concerts, people actually thought I was going to school there.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you switch over to
You know,
Saxophone was like high school.
yeah, high school.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
14. So I started clarinet when I was I think about 12 or so, and
Mhm.
got into the sax when I was about 14.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
So, what were your first bands like?
you
Like,
mean bands that I played in?
yeah, yeah. Were they
Well,
all school related bands? Your first band?
yeah, they were all school related bands. Occasionally, you know, because you're living in the county, you got to have a car to go to meet people, unless they're right in your neighborhood, right?
Right.
And there was one guitar player by the name of Rusty that he would come and pick me up every once in a while. I'd go over to his house and he'd play guitar and I'd jam on the sax.
Mhm.
And you have to remember, at this time I didn't know anything about key centers or anything like that.
Right. Right.
Had no knowledge of it really,
Yeah. Yeah.
and everything I was playing off of was complete jazz lore. You played what you felt,
Yeah.
even if you felt none of the right
Right.
notes.
Right.
So
Hold on a second.
mm,
Okay. Weird. Okay, we'll cut that out. Did okay. All right, so jamming with Rusty, and then you had your how was high school band?
um very good. uh the thing is, um when you're listening to bands like Weather Report,
Hmm.
you know and John Coltrane, and this is like really advanced music.
That was probably brand new right then, like Weather Report
Oh yeah,
when they
I
were
mean,
coming
of
up.
course, all
Yeah,
it was like cutting edge. Every
mhm,
album was cutting edge.
yeah,
Everybody lived on each album, but like everybody was competing in a positive way in the 70s.
hmm,
as far as like, you could see it even with the country people,
Yeah.
trying to outdo each other with the quality of the albums and
Mhm.
everything and the writing. There was a pride in that,
Yeah, yeah.
Now, of course, people would do a lot of stuff to try and sell the recordings and whatnot,
Yeah, yeah.
but
But you had to find in the 70s, you had to find your own sound.
oh yeah,
It
yeah, it
wasn't a
wasn't.
thing like and maybe this is just my impression, but it's like a lot of arrangers, a lot of songwriters, like this is a template that has been proven to work, and this is the one that everyone follows. In the 70s, it was like, no, if you're going to be somebody who's going to be successful, you have to find your own sound. So Earth, Wind, and
Yeah.
Fire didn't sound like Fleetwood Mac, did not sound like Aerosmith, did not sound like Black Sabbath, did not sound like, they all had their own distinct sound.
Oh yeah, it was important. It was important. I mean, I tell young people, I said, back then, you could walk down the street and you could tell what band somebody listened to just by the way they dressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Now, maybe that was the thing of youth,
Mm-hmm.
of how it was back then. But I mean, they're great, great memories to really have, and still even to kind of live off of a little bit today, because I know that that time period inspired so many people
Mm-hmm.
to get in music. That I'm 59, and I have a lot of them that are still
Yeah.
they're still fully engaged in music, and also friends that are older. You
Yeah.
know, they still want to play as much as they possibly can. You
Absolutely.
know, so yeah, a very powerful period. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there was I think the competitiveness and the challenges of society and everything drove people to, some of them, to be the best that they could be, to come up
Yeah.
with the most ideas. Because to be honest, it wasn't that easy to learn music back then.
Oh yeah. It was told, yes, that is an understatement. It's like people, yeah, people, I sound like an old man, like people just don't know how hard it was, you know what I mean? It's like um I was into my third year before I learned Stairway to Heaven. I was into my third year until I learned a song I wanted to know.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
because you have to go through this, because there's like back, my memory of it is there's a lot of music teacher dogma
yeah, yeah,
that this is what you must do. This is what you must do because oboe teachers teach this way. So we all have to teach in a uniform way, no matter, not taking into account that there are obvious differences between uh, our instruments.
yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of
Hmm.
youthfulness, usefulness in it. I'm all stuttered up. I mean, of course, I have a friend that teaches at Peabody Prep, and all the violinists, they're all taught the same way. They have to learn the same pieces. They have to learn the same exact fingering.
Hmm.
But there's a reason behind that, because if you are playing in a symphony, they all need to sound together as one.
Yeah.
Now that's different than being in a big band jazz band, where
Mhm.
you want to have a lot, even if it's 20 people, you want to have 20 individualistic voices that can play as one,
Yeah.
you know, but not be just straight
Hmm.
like that, flat with no unevenness in it and everything. But um, for a lot of us that came up hearing the music that we wanted to play, how do you learn that?
How
How do
did
you
you
do?
learn it?
Well, I mean, a lot of it was just by imitation and playing a lot of wrong notes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I took
Developing your ear.
yeah, and I took a lot of saxophone lessons.
Okay.
You know, a lot of jazz lessons, a
Uh,
lot of
when did that start to kick in?
by the time I got to Towson, really, because
Okay,
that's the
so
reason I mean, I really wanted to study when I was in high school, but my parents didn't really understand the desire to do that.
yeah,
They
yeah,
provided the instrument. I did get some lessons, but
yeah,
they didn't think of it as a viable career and everything.
right.
But the thing is that they provided enough background for me to, in the future, really put things together.
Mm-hmm. So
You know,
Towson.
well, no, I'm talking about
Or your
just my
parents. Or your parents.
stuff,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
when I got to Towson, like the reason why I went to Towson was Hank Levy told me when I was in high school, by the time you get to Towson, we'll have a jazz degree, right? Well, when I got there, they didn't have it. And so when you're at your first day of school, and I auditioned, I got in the music department. They were like, okay, what's your degree going to be? What are you going to study? I said, well, I came here to be a jazz major. Well, the professor of saxophone goes, Dr. Biscusa, we don't have that. You're going to be an education major.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I had nothing against that, but that's what I want.
Yeah.
You know, but see, like back then, because those music programs were strict and they would throw you out. See, that's what people understand.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they would throw you out.
They wouldn't even think twice about it.
No.
I remember sitting out, like passing my ear training test, sitting out in the hallway, people coming out after me in tears. And this was like over and over and over again. First of all, if they're failing that bad, then you're not teaching it right. But that's not. But anyway,
all of that was so useless.
Yeah.
I mean, because now that I think about it, I learned a lot at Towson. I would say overall, it was a great and a good experience. You know, there were a lot of hard times. I'll be honest about that. Yeah. But the thing is, if somebody's coming to your school, you want to take them in, hopefully, and train them and say, hey, this is what you need. What do you want to learn? Okay.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can give them the tools to learn what they want to learn, because they're not going to stay with you forever. And then hopefully you can send them out and they can go on their merry way and they're going to play great.
Yes.
Now, as the promotion for you, somebody might say, hey, well, who did you study with? You know, that's where it comes back good on you. But see, like back then, they thought the way to make themselves look good was to push people out, away, not to
be exclusive.
Yes.
Be exclusive.
Exactly. They thought, now, maybe when they came up, that was the way.
Well, yeah, and it was a different world. It was a different world. I guess there was limited numbers of people they expected to graduate. They expected probably 2/3 of not to finish out as a music major. They expected people to drop out.
I don't know what they expected, but I can tell you that there were a lot of people that came in, never graduated. There are people that came in, graduated, never pursued a career in music. That's a failure right there.
I will tell you this about Towson, and I don't say this is a bad thing, but I know a bunch of people that graduated as music majors and they are in tech degrees. Like they live their life as a like computer tech kind of stuff. And I don't know how the brain works at computer tech, you know, what we learn when we play music, but that is the truth. It's like that a lot of guys from Towson, they all have really nice jobs as like the computer end of the computer tech in corporations. But
I think the training of being a musician is what it takes to do it. I mean, it's not like you can just go and do the job as a musician.
Yeah.
You need to sound good. You know, when it comes to see you play, they need to leave feeling better because they heard Rod, you know, and saying, yeah, that was a great show. They need to feel elated. This isn't just like, hey, let me just play this saxophone part and they keep all the notes flat and everything.
Right.
No, it can't be like that. You know, you really have to bring something of yourself
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So now we got to talk about what Hank Levy was all about.
Well,
Like
Hank
he was an
Levy.
icon. He was an icon, and it's like he was kind of he's one of the coolest kind of people, and like I love the guys that were the rebel that eventually the world turned into their vision. Does that make sense? And I think
Yeah.
he was one of those guys that provided a new way of seeing things and new possibilities. And the establishment may have thought he was nuts. Or
Well, he was the icebreaker. He's the one that actually they sought him out because in the 60s, university, the students started to have more control over the curriculum. And they said, hey, we want a jazz band. So one of the teachers went out and sought Hank Levy, because Hank was very well known in Baltimore. And he said, Hank, why don't you come to the school and teach a jazz band? Well, he trained these kids. You see what I'm talking about? He trained them. He taught them to play his pieces. Now, Hank Levy was a specialist in odd time signatures, but Hank could write in any style. He could do straight up big band. He could do Latin. He could do all of it, right?
Yeah.
But he was on
Hank Levy as a professional. Who did he write and arrange for back in the day?
Stan Kennon and Don Ellis.
Okay.
And Don Ellis was big in the late 60s. He was one of the popular.
Dan Kent was one of my dad's heroes.
Yeah.
Because Maynard Ferguson played with him.
Right. So and Stan Kennon was very popular in the 50s. So I mean that's a huge calling card. So Hank developed a very popular jazz ensemble at Towson. He was only supposed to teach one band, but it quickly became 5.
Yeah.
Because everybody wanted it so bad. And they were coming across the country to study, playing a big band with Hank. If you couldn't go to Berkeley or University of Miami
or Texas,
a lot of these places were too far away for young people. You know what I'm saying?
Too expensive.
Well, it was just that, no, I don't want to live in Texas,
Yeah.
And we didn't have back then what we have now for technology, But if you hear, when I was coming up, unbelievably, if I ever said, oh, yeah, I want to play jazz, next thing I heard out of somebody's mouth, do you know Hank Levy? You should go to Towson and study with Hank Levy. I heard it all the time. It was like programming, but which was good, which was, so I wound up at Towson and went through the jazz program, studied with Chris Ford for 1 semester, classical saxophone. That was during the education semester. And I didn't want to be an education major. So I stopped taking the music courses and I just took my general studies courses for a couple semesters.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to figure it out. I was still playing the saxophone.
Yeah.
But I was trying to figure it out. And like I said, things moved slowly back then. If you wanted to learn, you had to learn on your own. If there was a jam session, I would, walk to the jam session or get the bus ride or get somebody to take me to the jam session, and I would go to the practice studios up in Towson and do that until the end of it was the beginning of my junior year or something like that. I have to find a major now. I'm late, it's 2.5 years in. I don't have a major. I finished all of my general studies degrees, right? English, math, all that. And I look at the catalog and they had a jazz major. No announcement. You know what I'm saying?
And it was kind of this thing that when he initially came in, the existing system was like, we're not so sure what we think about this.
Well, things move slowly.
Yeah.
Very, very slowly.
Yes.
And anything can hold something up.
Hmm.
anything, so a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, and it is like the I guess what I'm trying to say, it's important, I think, for people to understand that this is the way, this was a common thought back in the day, that the only way you could learn how to do certain things is through just uh, aiming at the orchestra, like an
Well,
orchestra kind of
and the
approach.
and the music and the formal music programs,
Yeah.
and Towson is kind of like maybe a good, I don't know, 10, 15 miles north of the inner city of Baltimore.
Hmm.
And it's right on the number 8 bus line, which will take you from Towson all the way down to the harbor.
Okay.
To take that bus ride is going to take you like a couple hours,
Hmm.
you know, um, at least a good, back then, at least a good hour and a half,
Yeah.
you know. So you had to know the bus lines and everything. So I would go to every jazz gig that I ever heard of, and
Jam
look at the
session.
paper so I could listen,
Yeah.
you know. And that's how I learned. I just listened, and if somebody was playing a tune that I liked, I'd try and learn the tune on my sax,
Hmm.
Then I'd go back to school,
Did you
take
have
my
like any improv like this that would happen later, like classes in improvisation?
I managed to take some improvisation classes uh, under Greg Hatza that were at night, um, at the school, which were great. They were really great for me.
Yeah.
I also studied with Carl Grubbs during the first summer. So
Okay.
that would have been summer of '82. That was a great experience
Yeah.
because I met Pharaoh Saunders and Monty
Mm.
Waters and Ken McIntyre, just all great jazz players of the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I mean, it wasn't the easiest of experiences. And um,
You're on the
me,
ground level. You were kind of your situation because you waited. You're on the ground level of a brand new
oh,
major.
yeah, yeah. So, um, it was just fascinating. But the thing is like you can have ideas of what you believe about the music and what you think it is,
Hmm.
and the majority of people might not agree with you at all.
Hmm.
And it might take years. It might actually take decades
Yeah.
for people actually catch up to where you're at.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now what's happened is now they move past where I,
Right.
is,
In some ways, yeah.
yeah.
I'm hearing about getting degrees in music degrees and not having to be able to play a musical instrument.
I wouldn't be surprised,
Yeah. That's a
So
thing.
one thing I would like to go into a little bit,
Mhm.
just to show you how different things are and how fast it's moved.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the mid '70s, there was a jazz magazine. It was called like Jazz Educators Magazine, and my band director would have it, and I would read it, right,
Right.
and read the articles. And these people were talking. Bunky Green was one of them, about how we need to get jazz programs in colleges, right,
Yeah.
and the fight for it. Okay, so that's how it started, and people were doing it because they wanted to teach, and students wanted to learn. Okay, when I got a jazz degree at Towson by '89, there was maybe 20 or so colleges you could get a jazz degree at. That's in '89.
Right.
Here's 2023. There's over 200 colleges you can get a jazz degree in now.
Yeah.
Now, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
see, now we flip the thing over so much that people think, oh, if I go through and get all of this schooling, that I'm going to get a career that I make money at. You know, they lose all sense of ground, or they may never have had it because,
Yeah.
the way things are now, if you just do it through the complete collegiate thing, it's not about their really getting out there and making and creating a gig for somebody else,
Hmm.
getting people paid and people hiring you and all of that. You're not learning how to do any of that.
Yeah.
You're just, oh, I'll get these degrees and then I'll get hired to teach at a college of my choice, right?
Yeah.
But that's not
But you
happening
can't,
because,
those people can't teach in the real world.
well, they can't do that. But the other thing is that it's supply and demand. You have too much supply of educated jazz musicians that have
Yeah.
a jazz degree or a doctorate, right?
Yeah.
But there's not enough places for them to teach,
Mhm.
if that's what they were thinking about,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And then the salaries don't match what the tuition that they've paid
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
those 4 to 10 years of
Mhm.
schooling, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've watched this whole
Before,
thing.
yeah, but, and you know
Darn.
darn well though, it was more than 10 years that we learned to do what we do. It is a lifetime. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know, when I started out professionally playing, when I joined the musicians union, the vice president of the Baltimore Musicians Union said, you know, well, a lot of times guys get to the end of their career and they don't have anything, particularly jazz musicians, right?
Mhm.
And I always kept that in the back of my mind, and as I got out and I played more and more and I played with different bands and would have different successes and, up, down, whatever, sometimes I'm with one band that's doing great, or maybe I'm
Mhm.
freelancing. And I realized that, hey, this isn't the type of career where, hey, guess what? I play my eighth notes much better than I did last year. I should be making more money.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way in this career.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
way it works is you got to go find the right type of performances that are going to give you the money that you want,
Yeah.
or put together your own band and
Mhm.
develop an audience.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can get where you want to be.
Yeah.
Those are the essential things. I mean, yes, be a great player. You got to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But
But being able to play 16th notes at 180 beats per minute and being able to play giant steps blindfolded in every key, that they don't care.
well,
Well,
look,
some people care.
everybody can do that now.
Yeah.
All the young people, they couldn't when I came up,
Yeah.
and I can really do it now. But
Mhm.
that's, you have to actually learn to go, hey, wait a second. Okay, if I budget my money out right, I can live in this small apartment and I can, like, maybe have a few students and practice all day long and hunt gigs at night.
Yeah.
And then maybe you do that for 4 or 5 years, and maybe you get to where you want to be with doing that. And then you'll start to say, look, I need to set myself up in a place where I don't have people hating on me because I practice 8 hours a day.
Right.
Maybe I can buy a house. How does that happen? You learn all of those things along the way.
Yeah.
Now, that is not for everybody. And then I learned there are a lot of people, it's happening for them because maybe they're in a great relationship with a spouse that
Yeah.
says, hey, I'll carry all of that and everything like that. But I mean, for me, I was never in that situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I have to learn how to do these things on my own.
Mhm.
And, so eventually every 5 years, I would kind of update things and say, okay, get your taxes together, learn how to do your taxes. Oh, you need to learn to get your credit together,
Mhm.
and then there are things in your career that you never realize that you need. I mean, for me, when I was working a lot, um, you need to have an excellent car. You can't have a beatboxer. You know what I'm saying? You can't have a hoopty that you're putting money into all the time, which was me.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
And, it took gosh, it's probably been since
5 years ago for me.
2006
Yeah.
was the first time I had my together enough to, like, I could go in and buy a new car
Yeah.
just on the credit,
Mhm.
And, so there was just so many things, but anyway, here I am at 59. I planned and I had some windfalls, and I paid off my house, and I paid off my cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do it on my own. I did have help.
Yeah.
You know? So, the thing is that if you can, for a musician, if you can keep that financial thing together, then it allows you to spend that time to be creative.
Yeah.
That's the time giving you money for. That's the time you practice, try out ideas that may not go any place. You go take that little $50 gig with the best players in town because you want to experience.
You're getting paid in experience.
And then you go and say, hey man, let me take that $3,000-$4,000 gig. Hey, only thing I had to do is play for an hour and I just got to hang out and keep my mouth shut. Yeah, I can do that. There's a lot that you got to learn through all of that. So yeah.
So what you're doing now to bring people up to the present, education has probably been a long part of your career, as is when you also the people that you've played with. What is neat about you is I've learned about this. So like you played with all kinds of musicians, like rock bands. Some of you played with rock bands. Like some people would say like, I'm not going to do that. That's beneath me or whatever. I don't know why they would, because I love, that's part of my roots. And it is, seriously, but you play everything.
Yeah, I was seriously, in a lot of ways, I've been fortunate in the way, not because of, I had this opportunity and I'm so honored and I hear that shit all the time. I'm not that way. I really am not that way. I came up in a period of time where it was about getting down. I want to play. I want to throw it down.
Right. And you can do that in a lot of different styles.
Well, so, going back to that whole 70s things when music was changing so much, even with the hardcore punk scene that was coming around, and it was just about getting up and doing it. There were bands that I go and jam with back then just to do it, and just experience that energy. So it was just just to be part of, or just like, I'm going to do that because that's the coolest thing I can do right now.
Right.
So like last year, an acquaintance called me and said, hey man, these friends of mine, Turnstile, they're going to play at the Anthem in Washington, which I didn't even know what the Anthem was.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it was going to be some little cool punk club. Right.
Right.
And they want you to come down and play one solo and we'll pay you. Right. And I'm like, yeah, I think I could do that, because I did earlier that day at Bertha's with my jazz, rock, funk, blues band. We play all these different styles of music. Right. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll play that gig in the afternoon, slide down to DC, play one solo and get some bucks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who Turnstile was at all.
Oh, they're huge.
Right. So, I'm playing earlier that day at Bertha's with my band Old School, and we had a nice little crowd there. And some guy goes, so who are you going to play with? I'm like, oh, this band Turnstile. I'm going to play at some punk club. And he goes, where? And I'm like, dude, I don't know where. And he goes, where? And I'm like, okay, it's this place called the Anthem. And he goes, that's not a punk club. That's a concert hall, right? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, those guys, the whole Turnstile, the crew, the management, the band, they were completely great. Got down there. They treated me really, really well, and no rehearsal, reviewed the tune over beatbox with the lead singer. And they brought me down to do the show, walked out and did the solo, had a great time, the audience, great time. And, got paid and left, but see, to me, I didn't take the gig because, it was going to be playing in front of 5,000 people at the end. It was like, no, this is the coolest thing I'll be able to do on a Sunday evening
Right.
after my own band.
Right.
That's why I do it.
Now, Turnstile, here's a funny thing. I saw a video of Turnstile. This is not that long ago. They played up in Harrisburg. My God, I'm old because this band is huge and the crowd is going nuts.
Mhm.
And I mean this in a great way that I have not seen people go nuts over in a very long time. And I don't even know who they are. I didn't know who they were. So it's like,
Let me tell you about the stage experience.
okay.
Okay. To kind of identify with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, no rehearsal. Okay. I didn't even get a sound check on the mic. Backstage with one of the other band's managers, and I'm like, hey, can you video this for me? You know, because I mean, Anthem looks great. The place is like sold out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they start the song. They wanted me to come out halfway through. So I come out halfway through, you know, and I walk up to the microphone, you know, so it's loud in there, right? Okay. And I figured, like, I'll just play just a little bit to see where this mic is at, you know, because as a saxophone player in that situation, anything could happen.
Yeah.
Playing it and you get a bunch of feedback, right?
Right.
You play it, you get nothing. I walked up to it. It was perfect. It was perfect, right? So then when it's time for the solo to start, I nailed it right, came right in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the audience got so excited that I could feel their breath.
Right.
That I've never experienced.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when it happened, I was like, oh, okay, don't lose your, you know, you stay on it, you know.
Right.
And great experience. But it was, yeah.
And if
and like
you wouldn't have been open to that experience, that never would have happened.
Oh yeah, right. No, not at all. Not at all. You know. And you know, the funny thing is when I posted the video on Facebook, of course, you know, everybody liked it and everything, you know. But of course, you know, even with a video, it's astonishing looking. You know, all these lights, you know, it's like 1,000 lights. You can see the audience and everything. And the videos is my back. So you can't see the front of me.
Yeah.
You can just see the back, you know, and the front silhouette. But, you know, that's the difference. You know, I'm not doing this because, like, oh, let me get that jazz PhD or DMA.
Right.
Nice teaching job at the local university and blah,
Right.
blah, blah, you know.
Yeah.
I never started out like that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. You know, I heard John Coltrane and I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Joe Henderson is awesome.
Yeah.
Phil Woods is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Jimmy Page is awesome. Jimmy
That's what I am really. I do appreciate that about you. You're not shut. You're not shut.
No,
You're my tribe because of that. You're not shut as a listener. You
no,
don't segregate.
no.
Good music is good music.
And well, and it's also the experience of the people because, like, you never know who you're going to meet who's going to be really receptive of you. When I first started going to the Full Moon Saloon, hold on, this Jazz Times link thing is just
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna send it to somebody real quick.
Full Moon, what is explain yourself there.
It was a blues bar in Fells Point.
Right.
And at one time it was super hot, right?
Right.
They had music 7 nights a week, right? And when I first started going down there, you know, I would jam, you know, and people liked it. But, you know, I'm going to music school, which is like all day long I'm being told, oh, you suck, you know.
Yeah.
I go down there and people go, don't come back unless you bring that horn.
Because I want to hear you throw down.
They're like, no, we love you.
Yeah, yeah. For your
Not like,
differences.
nah.
For your differences, what you bring to the table, what is your authentic stuff.
Yeah. And
So
but
you should
just like
not.
because these,
Yeah.
you know, they're into it. They're down for it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah, so the blues power, man.
Yeah.
Buddy Guy,
Uh-huh.
BB King, Johnny Winter,
So how
you
much
know.
of that, okay, so you're as an educator, how much do you stress the blues
Well,
in your teaching?
okay, if they're going to start getting into any of the American music, we start talking about that.
Yeah.
If I can get them past, well, or get them into tone, rhythm, harmony, melody, next thing in American music is the blues. And I start them with the blues scale.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so hold on, I'm almost got this down. Here we go. Please be correct. Uh, oh my God. Sorry. I can't believe what it just did. No,
You
that
sent it
was
to
me. I
me.
made a mistake. Uh, I copied the wrong link. Yeah, I teach them the blues scale. Now
Yeah.
they've already learned the major scale.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I show them the blues scale, I show them, hey, this is the blues scale, and this is why it works. And I show them the the tension notes, the blue notes. Why are they important?
Yeah.
Please be correct this time. All right. I might have to do this later. This is too complex for me to do right now
All
to
right.
send her all of this stuff. Yeah, so that's how I go about it, you know. If they're, you know, into it, I'm like, hey, this is who you need to listen to.
Yeah.
You know, horn play, I mean, it's kind of hard for them to understand, um, like listening to Muddy Waters, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, John Lee Hooker.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like, no, I want to create these sounds, you know.
Yeah.
That's because their whole experience is like major scale
Right.
orientated, not about getting into the sounds
Yeah. Most of the music that
in
y'all
the
listen
moment.
to, most of the music y'all listen to is not like that. It's like the rock and roll,
Absolutely.
the blues, the funk,
Hmm.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Even there's even threads of jazz that are like pentatonic, highly pentatonic.
Mm.
Yeah, so like and I know they like the Kenny Burrell, uh, Midnight Blue, and Stanley Tarantine. Some of that they go beyond it, but it's like you can hear them.
Hmm.
You can hear them throwing down on the blues scale. But as you said,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Well,
you
you want
have
to be able to create that.
go ahead.
Now, you want to be, to me, it's always like you want to be able to create that sound.
Yes, it is creating sounds as opposed to having to play exact notes. Like sometimes
Hmm.
exact notes are good, but it's like a lot of times what we do is like, how do you get that sound?
Yeah.
So, so do you have, is this something you go through with your students? Because I know some of what you do on the education realm is like the Baltimore Jazz Education Project. I know you're involved with, and I know you teach music at the Lakeland Elementary School, and so you, but and you also teach a whole bunch of people privately. Like
Mhm,
a lot of it is across the internet, like on Zoom or whatever.
mhm.
Okay, so what they teach in the school music program to take them to that next level, what is so your suggestion is to really like, okay, first off, let's check out the blues scale.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll get them to learn the blues scale
Hmm.
to be able to actually play up and down it. You know,
Hmm.
on a saxophone, if you can do it 2 octaves, that's good. Then I'll get them to do it in time, like on a simple beat, like maybe at 80 quarter notes, right?
Hmm.
Going right up the scale, coming down. And I'll make them be able to do that. And then
Yeah.
I'll go, okay, this is how you're going to improvise. We're using the same components, but what you're going to do is you're going to go from any note of the blues scale to any note. Don't worry about what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I want you to get the experience of moving back and forth.
Hmm.
And I'll have them do that in time.
Yeah.
Say, like, now see right here, this is a very case in point of our education system and the way we're teaching people. A lot of kids have problems doing this, not just kids, but adults too, because they think it's supposed to sound a certain way. And I'm like, no, just get used to being able to move, you know?
Yeah.
And I used to have one student that would play the same idea over and over and over and over and over and over and over to see he played that because that's what he could do.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't want to be able to do that. You don't want to do it that way. You want to be able to think of an idea and be able to quickly access it on your instrument
Hmm.
and do it in time.
Yeah.
Now, when we're doing this simply just on the blues scale up and down the instrument, if you've got a bunch of patterns in the middle of the horn, start working on some in the low
Yeah. Yeah.
or the, you know, be able to
Hmm.
go middle, low, high,
Yeah. Yeah.
high, low, middle,
Yeah.
high, 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 low, 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 middle,
Right. Right. Right.
place, different rhythms, right?
Hmm.
And so we'll do that for quite a while. And when I say for quite a while, a few lessons, right? Then I'll get them into the 12 bar blues form. What is a 1 chord? What is a 4 chord? What is a 5 chord?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
Uh,
notes within those chords.
yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
So in saxophone, you have to arpeggiate them one
Yeah.
note at it. But see, that's the thing. I wasn't taught necessarily to do that, even in college. You
Hmm.
know, I wasn't taught the reason of doing that. Now, I didn't really get that until I took some lessons in 91 or 92 with Ellery Escalin. I took 2 really great lessons with him,
Okay.
and that helped. Okay.
Hmm.
So I developed more after that, played in different jazz groups and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, you're hearing people do different things, but you can't necessarily figure out what that is. And then once I started to really just improvise on chord tones and then add the scales as opposed to just playing the scale on top of the chord, then
Hmm.
it started to become something. But I try and show them that way. Stay in time, use the blues scale. Then we'll learn the blues form and we'll just improvise on the chord tones and the
Yeah.
blues
Yeah.
scale. Same thing. They
Hmm.
can do quarter notes. Great. Let's do eighth notes.
Yeah.
They get that together. Then I'll say, let's change it up. Improvise for a bar of eighth notes on the chord tones.
Yes.
Then do a bar of rest. Then do a bar of a whole note. So I'm trying to show them like, okay,
Space.
it has these components. And then I'll show them a phrase, 4 bars. This is what's going on in your classical music, right?
Right. Right.
A book that's really good for not just saxophone players, but all musicians is the cello suites because Bach
Yeah.
mastered inverting chords.
Hmm.
And I'll show them like, hey, this is what Bach is doing. He's inverting the chords,
Yeah.
And say like, hey, now this is what we're going to do. And we do that over and over again. And hopefully at some point it starts to key in. But see, during this whole period of time, most students have so many doubts that they're like, they don't think it's the right way of doing it,
Yeah.
So I was just at a saxophone symposium that Jeff Antoniak did. Jeff's a great teacher, and he has the Jazz Wire. He's got like hundreds of students all over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was showing the students, this clinic had probably over 100 people in it. He was showing somebody exactly what to do, just what we're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he asked for a volunteer to improvise a few bars this way, just like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he puts in the backing track. Now, the person that said they wanted to volunteer could obviously play. They didn't do anything that Jeff said. They played it was a decent jazz solo, but it wasn't what he told them to play.
Yeah.
And Jeff went, he goes, that's not what I asked you to do.
Yeah.
They, here he is. He's telling them, this is what you need to do.
Right.
Why are you coming to the clinic and not doing what the teacher says
Right. So
for you to do?
The idea of being coachable.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That's a thing. It's like Michael Jordan. The reason, one of the best things that he has going for him is he's coachable, because he didn't start out as a wonderkin. He wasn't the god of basketball. He stunk.
Right.
He stunk, and he was, but he was coachable, and he was a hard worker.
Yeah, he had some basic raw talent, and he got in there and he worked his ass off. So it would have been a different thing had the kid been.
Did they get somebody in there to follow his the Jeff guy, the Jeff Anakin?
Oh yeah. And he built it from just like chords to adding a note before the chord and whatnot. And he showed them all sorts of stuff that they could do. And it was really a great clinic. Yeah. But, so like in a way, back in the day when I was coming up, it's not like that wouldn't have happened. It was just that students didn't have enough ability to do something like that. Mm-hmm. Now it's easy to get the knowledge because there's so much of it free on YouTube, which isn't a bad thing. Mm-hmm. It's just that back when we came up.
I guess the only bad thing about any of that is it's like a fire hose. What's the good knowledge?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So not everybody had an opportunity to learn like that back in the day. Today, it's easy to get. So now everybody has that. So here's the difference. If everybody now can speak the English language, now what you're going to do?
Right.
Nobody can just be lured just because they have the knowledge of English. They can read the book. Now everybody can read the book,
Yeah. Like I started teaching back in '89, and a big deal back then was like I had these clinics I went to. Like I went to Robin Ford Clinic, I went to John Schofield Clinic, Danny Gatton, all these different people, right? That's an afternoon's worth of YouTube videos. But back then it was a big deal.
Of course. That was not going to happen. Back in the day.
Yeah.
Robin Ford, Miles Davis,
right?
John Lennon, all the people. I saw him play with Miles.
Right. He was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, Baltimore Jazz Education Project, what is that all about?
We've been together since 2007. One of my adult students, Greg Poling, was a corporate president. He took lessons with me. He'd come and see my students do concerts, and he liked all the improvement he saw over years. And he said, hey, I believe in what you do. I'm going to put together an organization and you're going to run it. And I want you to go out and get some instruments and find some students. Don't charge the students. He'll pay for everything, which he does. And we've been together since 2007, and we've raised over $180,000. And we spread that through the whole community through instruments and lessons, and just various projects.
Good work.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah,
it's been awesome.
So how long have you been teaching?
Overall,
how long has teaching been a part of your thing?
Well, probably, I mean, to be honest, I really started back in high school. I wasn't charging anybody. I was just showing people what I knew, but probably 92, and I got serious in 2000.
Okay. Alrighty.
You know?
And then there's Lakeland Elementary School. So you're the music teacher there? Where is that?
I am one of the music teachers there. Okay. I teach there part-time. I teach saxophone and I teach recorder.
Okay.
And it's a great school, and been really enjoying it.
Yeah. Yep. And they can reach you. If somebody wants to study with you, you're available anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
Via the interwebs.
So they can just look me up online. Yep. Or they can call you and you can send them my number.
Yeah, absolutely. So there will be a link, or there'll be some sort of link to your stuff in the description of it. So
yeah. Can I mention my site?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a small site.
Yeah.
GregThompkinsJazz.com.
Okay.
GregThompkinsJazz.com.
You have the old school. You have an old school band. Old school plays all kinds of music, funk, jazz, rock, kind of.
Yeah, man, you did a night with us. It was awesome.
It was wonderful. Yeah, it was fun. It was wonderful. Yeah, anytime. All right, Greg. Thank you so much for this. Music education. Yeah, all the stuff that some of the insights you have on it. We share some of the same views and some of the same experiences, even though I only met you like 5 years ago, but we have a lot of the same experiences. And some of the world we grew up in was the same world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like great. You never imagine when we were young, a lot of these bands that we grew up that were huge when we were young, they're still huge.
Yeah.
They're in their real golden age
right
now. So Bruce Springsteen just played, I think, 2 nights in Baltimore and tore it down. This weekend, I think, is the Eagles.
Yeah.
Now think about that.
Somebody, yep. I've
these bands. It's back when we were kids.
Yeah. I was. Like,
that's how powerful.
3 years old when the Eagles first started making hits, and I'm old as dirt now.
Well, they are dirt.
So as I said, it's like back in the day, finding your own sound was a thing, and it's like it's maybe coming back. It's hard to say all of what. I'm not even going to predict what's the future of music, because it's like it's not predictable. It's going to be unpredictable. That's probably the only thing we can say for certain.
Who knows? I mean, what was the name of the singer that sang the national anthem at the Super Bowl?
Rihanna.
No, Chris
Stapleton. Okay,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a rendition that moving since Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy poured it out. That
I think so too. That was wonderful.
That it's still around. It's still here. it's still enough for mass audiences to appreciate. It's just that the whole business thing is different now. And as we go along and figure this out, it's ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's gone away. You and I, we're still doing it.
Yeah.
There's people that want to do it. There's still people going out to huge shows,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah. So, well, yeah, the shape of it, live. Is it going to be live musicians? Is it going to be just tracks? Are they going to get sick? People are going to get sick of tracks, and who knows?
we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't. It's not over for the live musician.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there are a lot of people playing in Baltimore now.
Yep.
A lot. It's surprising.
Yes. Now you got me. I got to check out you and Turnstile.
I'll send. I have a I'll send you the link.
Okay.
On
It's you have it on YouTube or just?
Yeah, I put it on YouTube so that anybody that would want to check it out could check it out.
They had something on their album that had a saxophone. Is that?
I think from what I understand was that the tune is awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess what they did was a bunch of cities, they had different saxophone players sit in with them.
Okay.
Look, if I had known who they were, they asked me to go to New York with them, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't because I other commitments, right?
Right.
But I would have gone had I known who they were.
Right.
But I was told later on it wasn't so hot because it rained, and I think it was an outside show, so it was kind of rough for them and everything.
Yeah. Yep. All right, Greg. So thank you so much for this.
Oh,
thank you so much for this. Always talking about the music education stuff, and also music is a kindred spirit. So thank you all, and yeah, we'll do this again sometime. All right.
Thanks, Rod.
Absolutely.
Take care now.
Absolutely.